Okay, to start my presentation off, I'm going to talk about Dave Bliss and his recent hire from Southwest Christian University. Dave Bliss was a basketball coach. He coached for 28 years until, of course, the incident with the University of Baylor, which we're going to get into. However, just recently, as in this month, Southwestern Christian University in Bethany, Oklahoma, they hired him as their head basketball coach. And I'm going to go into the backstory, and then we're going to get into our discussion. Back in 2003, Patrick Dennehy, who was a member of the basketball team, was shot and killed by his roommate and teammate Carlton Dotson under Dave Bliss, who was the head coach. Dennehy and Dotson joined the basketball team a year before this all went down. They were both transfers. And at this time, Dave Bliss, he was trying to accomplish where he was bringing in players who had troubled past, been kicked off the basketball team, or are second chance players to come in and play for him. Dotson came in from Paris Junior College in East Texas, and he was able to play right away. Dennehy came in from New Mexico, and he was at the Division I level, so he had to sit out a year. However, as the season went on, Dave Bliss got a new JUCO guy, and Dotson was going to come out, and he wasn't going to play as much, and Dotson planned to transfer again. So really the story of the timeline of what happened, in April of 2003, Dotson just moved in with Dennehy, whose marriage just had fallen apart. I think it had lasted only about 8 months, and then coming up to June 2nd, so not much after that, both of these guys bought and registered for guns to protect themselves. Each one of them told separate coaches on the basketball team that they had about $300 stolen from their apartment. Someone had broken in, so to protect themselves, they went and got guns. They waited the right amount of time, which I think it's 5 days for the waiting period, and to register and get a gun. So they picked up the gun 5 days later, which would be June 7th. Dennehy's family was really upset that the coaches didn't take the threat seriously. And then only 7 days later was the last known communication of Patrick Dennehy, which would be June 14th. June 19th, he was reported missing, and Dotson showed up a few days later in Maryland, and it was kind of curious where Dennehy's car, his SUV, was found in Virginia, I think Virginia Beach. Dotson was arrested in late July after calling 911. He said he needed help because he was hearing voices. So I think he was going through some mental issues. According to a report from the Washington Post, several of Dotson's family members were really concerned about his growing emotionally unstable behavior. Waco police said that the FBI agents in Maryland said that Dotson shot Dennehy after Dennehy tried to shoot Dotson. And Dotson told the AP, the Associated Press, that he didn't confess anything. But Dennehy's body was found just a quarter mile down from Baylor's campus on a dirt road. He was badly decomposed, and the autopsy revealed that he had been shot twice, just right above the right ear. While that's obviously bad enough, within a few weeks, Dave Bliss was found. The university found that Bliss had been directly involved in paying tuition costs to Dennehy and another player, and it also found that many players had failed drug tests and players had not been properly reported. And at that time, Bliss said that he had been running pristine programs for 30 years. However, Bliss was caught on tape by one of his assistant coaches, Abar Ruse, and he made the secret tape. They met on July 30th, 31st, and August 1st, and Ruse gave this tape to the Fort Worth Star-Telegram But basically, what it was um, in the article said that Bliss tried to persuade others to portray Dennehy as a drug dealer to save his reputation. And at that time, he was like the 13th winningest active basketball coach. He just won over 500 wins. The payments that he made to Dennehy, he was going to make it seem that he was a drug dealer and that the murder was done um, through drugs and dealing and all that kind of thing. Bliss was also found to say that Dennehy was dead and couldn't refute the accusations, and he suggested that two players tell slightly different stories. It didn't matter. Quote, it just has to be the same ending. And then after that, he resigned after Dennehy's funeral. Obviously, he was blackballed and hasn't been allowed in college basketball. Abar Ruse, the assistant coach, hasn't been hired since, even though he had done nothing wrong, and he was the one who opened it up or blew everything up. Bliss, let's see, where since 2003 he coached in. He was like he helped out in a Denver area high school. He coached 1 year in the CBA, which is the Continental Basketball Association of the Dakota Wizards, and since 2010, he was in Bryan, Texas, with like an academy. Basically, kids would come in and he'd help out with running that for the basketball team. Anyway, Southwestern president Regis Winika said that, quote, Bliss fits well within our mission and culture and embraces what Christian-based education is all about. Bliss is going to, he has written a book, Fall to Grace, and it's scheduled to come out this month. And that kind of, the book will give his details into the scandal and his journey to forgiveness. So since we've got, for the discussion part of this, Andrew, my brother, he's in college. My dad and mother decided to help out. And since we got a little bit of age difference here, I was going to ask, if you were a member of the basketball team, or if you were a member of the faculty staff in some way, either as a professor or something else, what would your reaction be after first learning Dave Bliss was going to be your head coach and represent your university? Though it's a small school off 39th Street in Bethany, of about 800 students, and it's an NAIA program instead of NCAA, just a little bit of history. But what would you find out Dave Bliss is going to be your coach, you find out what he had done, or you kind of tuned up on what he had done if you remember, and what would your kind of reaction would be?
I'd be definitely shocked because obviously has some past character flaws, and as a player, you're looking to your coach as a leader and someone you can respect. And obviously, he's done some bad things. I'm not sure if I'd be able to take him seriously as a leader, as a coach, as an authority figure. I'd definitely be very cautious, and I'm not sure if I'd be able to buy in completely.
So, kind of what you're saying, if you had the option, would you, without being able to obviously trust your coach, what would Dave Bliss have to do to earn your trust, or would you maybe decide and pursue other options? Obviously, if you're going to Southwestern Christian, you're not necessarily an NBA prospect or something, so this is truly for the love of the game. Would it be worth it to be around somebody with such a dark past?
That's a tough question, but I don't think I would. I don't think I'd continue to play under someone like that. Obviously, there's forgiveness and there's understanding, but with the amount of issues that he created, I don't think I'd be able to look past all of them. Maybe a couple, but when you add all of them up, I just don't see how I could look past it all.
Okay, and with you guys as a member of the faculty, um, he's going to represent. He brings a face to the university where it may not necessarily have had one. What would your reaction be, and what would be the issues be with you having him as a representative for your university as a basketball coach?
I would say, I would question the statement of he represents what we believe. He definitely brings in a questionable past and the cover up, and I would have to question everything about it. Yeah, it would not portray what I would believe you want your student athletes to be. You have pay per rental players coming in. He's given second chances to these players. Yes, I agree with that. But I don't know that there's due diligence brought in behind those players. Maybe he's learned from that. He's going to have to prove some of that. Maybe you give him a second chance, but he's got a long ways to go because there was life-threatening issues behind it. It's one thing if it's grades, it's something else. You can put checks and balances in that, but this is a life situation.
Well, and it was kind of to piggyback off of that. It would have been one thing, maybe would have been a black mark on him if he first off hadn't have broken the NCAA violation by paying players, and second, it would have been one thing if he had said, "Yeah, I did it," but the cover up I think makes it of a person first off that you wanted and you brought in to coach, and then you tried to, after this person had been murdered brutally by his roommate and teammate that you brought, you're responsible for bringing both of them there, that then after the person's dead tried to put a black mark on it. What do you think?
I would be concerned for the reputation and credibility of the program, as well as the university itself, the college. I would be concerned. I don't think that he should be given a head coach position. I think he would need to be monitored carefully and held accountable, and maybe coming in as an assistant or something somewhat below that until they could really see how he operates and if he's learned from his past mistakes, and if he's I'm all for giving people second chance, and there's forgiveness and grace, but I think you have to have boundaries. You have to be wise about it and to set up boundaries. I don't think he set up boundaries and watched those players carefully and monitored them enough, and he needs to be monitored as well.
Right. And Bliss, he is 71. He's coached at the University of Oklahoma, Southern Methodist University in New Mexico, and Baylor was obviously his last place. The athletic consultant, Jim Poteet, who actually coached for the school in the mid-'70s when Coach Bliss was at Oklahoma, said that the school officials believe redemption, and I believe Bliss has been transformed. Kind of transitioning into another question here is, if it were up to you, if you were a part of, say the four of us are sitting here and we have to make the decision with the president and the athletic consultant, and they ask you directly why or why not hire Dave Bliss, and what would your reaction? What would thinking as somebody, not a student athlete or somebody as a faculty, but somebody that is on the committee to hire people, what would be your answer to that? Whether you would hire him, or why you wouldn't hire him.
Okay, I would. The reasoning, obviously, I would say I wouldn't hire him, and the reason is he brings into it's the character. He doesn't. It's his character. Your character is from your past and your actions, and the cover up of something of a murder, and to ruin someone's reputation after they were murdered, after they can't defend themselves, and ultimately he's responsible. He didn't. Some people think he didn't take seriously their reasoning behind getting a gun, but he brought in these people, and ultimately he's responsible for them. And I wouldn't feel comfortable bringing him around student athletes anymore.
What would your guys' reaction, or what would your guys' answer be to that question to the athletic consultant if you're on the committee?
My first reaction would be no way. You know, and again, like we've talked about before, giving people second chances if they've earned it. So there'd be a lot of interviews with people that he's dealt with since this. Has he changed? Has he changed his ways? Changed his thought process? But what he's demonstrated to me in the past is his decision making is highly questionable, and you're putting him over a bunch of student athletes who you're looking to mold them. This coach is helping to mold them for the future. I believe basketball and all other sports at this level is a developmental program, and it's more about developing student athletes for the future, less about the sport. So, has he changed that mindset?
Okay.
I think I would have a hard time agreeing to that, to hiring him,
Mm-hmm.
and it based more on his character, because you are, especially at a Christian university, your
Right.
character or morality and
That factors heavily into.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
right.
Well, there's another thing that's interesting that's come out that I haven't mentioned yet, but I mentioned that he was the athletic director, coach, and dean of students at the Allen Academy, a prep school in Bryan, Texas. And at Allen Academy, they ran into some issues, mainly for allowing players to pay only a fraction of the school's $10,000 yearly tuition. And their argument was that there was benefits for non-athletes. And anyway, I don't think it ever got settled. Allen Academy eventually left the association and joined a different private school organization. So that's just kind of some follow-up on more that he's done. But I'm going to ask one more question. Obviously, there are a lot of cons in hiring Dave Bliss. Just obviously they've done it. They feel comfortable with what what Southwestern Christian University has done. So I'm going to ask this, and if you'll just quickly go, what would be some pros? Obviously, the list of cons is long. To you, what would at least one or two pros be to hiring Dave Bliss?
If I was in administration, the one thing that I guess you could show your student athletes and the student body is you're kind of putting your money where your mouth is. You're showing that you are about forgiveness, and at a Christian university, that's a big, assuming that's a big priority for them. So that would be my only pro for doing it, is just to show you are about forgiveness and you're putting it into action, and that would be all I could.
Right. Yeah.
That's the only way I could justify it.
I agree. Now you guys get the difficult part. Other than forgiveness, the forgiveness angle, is there another pro that you could find?
He's obviously knows basketball and knows how to coach it. But again, I think that's secondary to teaching character and just exploring their best ways they could grow into better citizens.
Right, and that's kind of, I mean, again, we talked about these kids aren't going to go to the NBA or anything like that. They might have aspirations to go, but it's all about molding young men and students, and does Bliss fall under that? That's definitely a huge question. That. So, what would a pro be for you?
I think I'd have to look back at his previous coaching jobs and the success he had there, and what was good about those. You kind of think about one major mistake can be so life changing, and so looking back at his past and how successful and how he handled himself and those situations. I also like his heart. I like his heart of wanting to help kids and give them a second chance, and that just needs to be directed in a more positive and I don't know. Just I think that needs to be monitored a little bit better, has better direction.
Right. That's all the questions that I've got today. One quote just to end from his press conference Bliss held when he was addressed. He held a press conference. He talked about the issues that he's had, and also met with any person on the faculty, and then any reporter that was there and answered any and all questions and waited for them. But his last quote that was really kind of powerful, at least in this situation. I don't think for a minute any of you would do something as foolish as what I did, but you need to understand something. I didn't think I would either. My obedience to what God can do with my story is truly what drives me nowadays. Although there are parts of my story that I'm not proud of, I'm grateful for God's faithfulness. All right, thank you for your time and your questions, and that's it.